Hi everyone. How's everybody doing? Tonight I decided to have a little fun with a deck that is taking the tarot community by storm, which is the Shadowland Tarot by Monica Badursky. And I'm sure that some of you have seen unboxings and walkthroughs of this wonderful deck. It's just fabulous. It is actually available on Amazon. It's a mass market deck, but with the presentation and aesthetic and comprehensiveness of an indie deck. And I think this is one of the reasons why everyone has fallen in love with this deck recently. There are a lot of videos about it out there, and so I wanted to pay it an homage because I'm working with it right now and I absolutely adore it. And rather than just do another walkthrough, I thought that we could have some fun with it tonight and do a reading. And this reading is going to be for the collective, so it's for everyone. If you are drawn to listening to this reading, no matter what time or day that is, then the messages you were guided to hear. It's going to be a mind, body, spirit reading, which is actually one of the spreads that is in the Shadowland Tarot book, this beautiful book that accompanies the deck. And I'm taking it right from here. And it's a 3-card spread, but what I thought we would do was address 3 different groups. So we've got group 1 that has the hematite stone, group 2 which has the tiger's eye, and group 3 that has an onyx. And all 3 of these stones are protective. They have protective qualities, which I think kind of goes along with the theme of what I wanted to zone in on tonight, which is doing a reading, balancing the mind, body, and spirit, what your guides want you to know during this time of the COVID-19 pandemic, which admittedly I think all of us have been affected by in a variety of ways, not just economically and health-wise, but there's a lot of other things that the pandemic brought up for people on emotional levels, on spiritual levels. And because I like to always sort of look at 2 sides to every story, I think it's important for us to try to uplift ourselves out of some of the obvious downsides that this has caused the world and look at what could be the hope in the situation. So if you're like me and you're sensitive, a sensitive soul, you may have been feeling a lot of strange ups and downs during this time period. You may have felt lethargic at times and then suddenly get a burst of energy and pull an all-nighter. You may find that your body clock is completely off, so your whole biorhythm is just all a mess. You may have found that you were stress eating, or you may have found that you had no appetite at all. If you're lucky enough to be able to be with your family and you're living with other people, you may have had all sorts of strange interrelations, arguments, getting on each other's nerves, cabin fever. And if you're alone, you may have been suffering from periods of depression and loneliness. So wherever you are on this spectrum right now, I just want you to take a deep breath and take a look at the 3 piles and choose a pile that speaks to you, whether it's the stone that attracts you or whether you just are attracted to the number of 1. We'll call this 1, 2, or 3. But take a couple seconds to just take a deep breath and tune in, call in your guides, and ask them to guide you to the right reading for you. Okay, I'll give you a couple of seconds to do that. Okay, so we're going to start with pile number 1 that has the hematite. So we'll take this off and see what Shadowland Tarot has to say to group 1. So you've got the Queen of Cups, you've got the Three of Swords reversed, and you've got the Moon. So this first card of the Queen of Cups represents your body and your health and how it is at the moment. So the Queen of Cups, and also as we go through this reading, just want you to enjoy the the cards, and let's see if I can just go down a little bit so you can get a better look at them. Okay. So what I love about this deck is just the whimsical nature of it. It's got so much depth, even though sometimes we find ourselves laughing out loud when we look at the images on the cards. The Shadowland is a world that the creator conceived, and it represents, you know, all those creatures that lurk in the shadows that we don't explore because we're a little bit afraid to. And I just love the way she brings that fear into the light. So this is an amazing deck to do any kind of shadow work with. And without, I mean, it packs a punch, but it doesn't make you feel like there's no hope. The deck does it with a kind of with a wink and a nod, which is what I really love about the artwork. So digging into this first reading, if you were the person who chose pile number 1, right now your physical health is in a very good place. You are really feeling a lot of freedom in your body, and you're very in touch with your body. So you're listening to it, which is a very good sign. It means that you have an awareness, and you're very expressive right now. You're in a place where I think you feel like, even though you may be quarantined and in isolation, you're finding ways to tap into talents that you may not normally tap into when things were more normal. I hate to use that word normal, but the truth is our world has been upended and things are very different than they were 2 months ago. So, and if you're not doing that, if you're not able to find within yourself an expression for your emotions through creativity, then this card is encouraging you to do so. And because it represents your physical well-being and your health, that to me could be ways of staying fit, perhaps getting a little bit more active, taking walks, or doing exercise videos at home, or just dancing around the house and singing to your favorite music, kind of karaoke style. Anything that brings you joy is where your body kind of wants to be right now, viscerally. So even if it's just going outside to a quiet place in nature and just contemplating and meditating, that too could bring a lot of peace and balance to your body. I live in an apartment building, but I have a patio on my roof. And during this quarantine, I've spent a lot of time up there because in the beginning, it wasn't even recommended that we go out for walks. So I would sit up on the roof and try to get some sunshine. And I just found that just even a couple of minutes a day of doing that is just so grounding. And it is a way of bonding with nature. So you can find ways to do it even if you don't feel like you can. You can. You just have to think outside the box. So if there's anything stress related, any stress related issues that may be affecting you because you are a highly empathic and emotional person. The Queen of Cups is someone who is very, very emotional and expressive. So if you are finding that that aspect of yourself is being challenged right now because of COVID-19 and being stuck at home, then it's really encouraging you to release that stress through some sort of physical activity. Okay? Now, the next card that we have is the Three of Swords reversed. Now, this particular deck, Monica doesn't talk about, she doesn't really read reversals. She says that in the book. However, I think what she made very clear is that the reason for that is that the deck, each card already, because it's the Shadowland Tarot, and because you can do a lot of amazing shadow work with this deck, it's sort of already built into the card. The reversal is sort of comprehensively built into the card as a given. So she just will give you in the book something that just says like the shadow side or the shadows, and she'll give you a couple of definitions or keywords. So we're going to honor that a little bit. We're going to honor the reversal, even though we know that every single aspect has its reverse, okay, whether it's upright or not. But we're going to say that if it's in the reverse position for means of this particular reading, it's something that you have to pay attention to. You're a little bit more strongly in the shadow side than you would be normally. So this second card, this middle card, indicates where you are in your mindset and any kind of challenges that you may be facing right now. Well, we all know that the Three of Swords, and let me show it a little bit closer up, is the heartbreak card, right? In the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, we iconically always see the heart stabbed with three wounds or with three swords going through it. In this case, there's like stick pins. But just look at the imagery of this card. And this is one of the things that I think we're all collectively in the tarot community identifying with why we love this deck so much. Is this guy, this crow, just not the coolest? Look at him standing there with his hands in his pockets of his trench coat. You know, he's like a mover, a shaker in the city. He's got his shades on. So for somebody who, is supposed to be feeling heartbroken, I think, he's in a good place to turn things around. You definitely get the idea that he's not down for the count. He may be vulnerable, but he, I think, can find the positive in a situation. So being in the reverse position, right, you may be dealing with feeling a little bit depressed right now, a little bit defeated. You may be challenged with having financial issues because of the pandemic. You may also feel a little bit of loss and grief because you haven't been able to be with a loved one that maybe lives somewhere else. But, mentally you're kind of dragged down by this whole thing, and that's okay. A lot of people are, and that's all that you need to remember. And I think that that's the message of the crow in this card. His message to you is that even though things don't look that great right now in your mind, this too shall pass. You'll be out there again, and you'll be able to overcome the current feeling of heartbreak that you're feeling right now because of the situation. Most of it is circumstantial and beyond your control. So it's just a matter of tuning in, having awareness, and changing your mindset. Moving on to the third card. So the third card is representing how you're feeling from a spiritual place. How are you holding up in the face of this from an energetic perspective? And this card is also in a position to suggest to you a way that you can express yourself spiritually to give you a little bit of relief or freedom right now. So we have the Moon card, and you know, I have a love-hate relationship with the Moon card in a tarot deck, because I love the moon, and I as a person like to sort of be mindful of the moon cycles as I go through my life. And yet we all kind of know that archetypally the moon can also be a tricky card when it comes up in a reading, because it can represent delusion just as much as it can represent that mystical, magical feeling of being guided by the intuition and the psychic spirituality of the moon. So, you know, it's a double-edged sword. And this particular card is just adorable. We've got two trick-or-treaters, or perhaps just a witch and her pet lobster, depending on how you want to look at this. But they are out about walking under the full moon, and we see that they, you know, they may have a little bit of hesitation as they move forward. Maybe they're going to visit grandmother in the woods, and the witch notices that the moon looks a bit like a wolf, or perhaps a dog. This is the symbol, wolf or dog, symbolizes the inability to discern clearly in the dark. So perhaps this is a little bit of a frightening vision that the little witch sees as she goes down the path. And I'm getting some of this imagery, by the way, from the book, so that I can familiarize you guys with the deck, those of you who are not familiar with it yet, as we do the reading. But coming from a spiritual perspective, I think that this card is telling those of you in group 1 that you should be paying very special attention to your dreams right now, because you're being guided. You are definitely getting messages in your dreams, and it might be a good idea to keep a dream journal next to your bed. The moon takes us in and asks us to sort of question ourselves and look at things that are in the shadows, that are things that we don't normally want to look at or take a look at. So it's what's not there, what's not obvious. What is going on in your life right now because of the situation of the lockdowns and the quarantine? What is it that you may be missing, that you may not be seeing, that's affecting you on a bigger, more profound level, on a very psychic plane? If you do that work, if you do that exploration, you may get tremendous, amazing insights into the big existential questions, like, where am I going in my life? Am I on the right path? Do I enjoy the work that I'm doing? Should I stay in this relationship, or should I leave? Am I ready to start a family? You know, I think that having this private time, having this slow time is the perfect time to reflect. And I think that it's so interesting that this card sort of bookends the Queen of Cups. There's a big correlation here with the power of emotion and psychic ability and intuition and spiritual growth and overcoming heartache. So group 1, I think you guys are highly psychic people. I think you are very gifted and very empathic and healers. And I think you have a lot of power that's not in the obvious sense. A lot of your old souls with deep wisdom. And this is a perfect time to tap into that and to grow and to take it to a level that you've never experienced before. Okay, so there you have it, group 1. And now let's move on to those of you who chose the Tiger's Eye. You are my group 2. Nine of Swords in reverse. 7 of Swords. And the 9 of Wands. 2 nines. So there's definitely a progression towards a completion during this time in the pandemic for you guys personally. So let's look at this a little bit deeper. Let me show the card to you right side up. So in the traditional tarot, we all know, I'm trying to find so that I don't get a glare here. We all know that the 9 of Swords is that nightmare card, right? It's that time when, we allow our own fears and our own catastrophic thinking to overwhelm us and to just get us completely out of whack. These fears may be real, but they also may be imagined, and pretty much, 9 times out of 10, they're more imagined, or we are blowing them up to be more than they are. But that's not to say that there's any minimization going on here to how you're feeling, because I think group 2, from a physical perspective, to me, this card simply is just telling me that you're not getting enough sleep. You are really not sleeping well, and it's gotten to a point where perhaps it's gotten so troublesome that it could affect your health. So you're going to have to be very careful. I would highly recommend that you get onto a regime where you can try to get a little bit more control in this area of your life. One suggestion would be to get off of the computer or stop watching TV at least an hour and a half or an hour before you plan on going to sleep, so that you can start to decompress and train your body that now it's time to stop thinking, to stop, letting the mind spin, and calm down. And there's a lot of different things that you can do to help assist you to, I should say to help assist your body into getting prepared for sleep. Some people prefer exercising at night because it wears them out, and then it gets them into that very relaxed state. Some people, it energizes them. So it's kind of all dependent upon who you are and how your body feels and functions. But another thing you could do is take a hot bath with Epsom salt, or with something that, with aromatherapy. Lavender is very, very relaxing and soothing. Drink some lavender tea or lavender and chamomile, or sleepy time. They have a lot of teas out there that are blends that are, meant to help promote sleep. You can take valerian root. You can take melatonin. You can even take supplements like 5-HTP or something that kind of already activates the serotonin levels in your system so that your body physiologically starts to get prepared for sleep. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. Obviously, don't take anything unless you get advice from a doctor, but even if you're taking over-the-counter supplements or herbs, because they are the real deal and they can seriously affect people in different ways. So you want to, do it in a wise way. But lowering the lights, I have a pair of glasses that have orange tinted lenses, and I wear them sometimes when I'm having trouble sleeping at night when I'm watching TV before I get to that place where I'm ready to get prepared for bed. And they take out all of the blue light, because blue light keeps your brain kind of awake and going. So if you can use warm lighting, anything that takes all the cool colors out of what you're looking at, that will also trick your mind into starting to release. So I think that the major stresses that group 2 is having right now on their physical body is due to lack of proper rest. Now, moving on to your mindset. Well, this is a little bit more complicated because you've got the 7 of Swords. And the 7 of Swords is traditionally the card of getting away with something. Getting away with stealing, with lying, with making off with all the goods, tricking somebody, being maybe a little bit dishonest. And it could be that on a mental level, you are sort of in a place of rebellion. You may be in a place where you're kind of over this whole thing. You're tired of dealing with it. You don't want to talk about it anymore. You don't want to read the news. You don't want to watch anything on the news. You don't want you're going to get off of Facebook. You're going to walk out and go see a friend, even though you've been told that you shouldn't be doing that. You should, observe social distancing. You're just kind of in a place where you've just sort of had it. And mentally, you're just really feeling rebellious. And it would make sense that you would have that kind of reaction on the mental plane if your body is exhausted, and it could make you very cranky right now. So I simply think that this is really one of those situations where you feel the risk, but a part of you doesn't want to admit to acquiescing to it, if that makes any sense. You don't want to give in to it. You want to get away with just, just not coping with it. And you may be very argumentative right now with people who you're living with and confrontational. So you may want to be aware of that you're not sharing your bad mood with everyone else around you. So I think that getting the proper amount of sleep will make you a little bit nicer to be around. Now, spiritually, the card that came up for you guys is the 9 of Wands. So the 9 of Wands is really being in that position of feeling defensive. It's the wounded warrior, somebody who has come back from being through hell and back. And in this particular deck, it's really interesting, the imagery on this card. I'm going to try to give it a little bit more of a close-up look for you guys. So this little guy, he's reading a journal by candlelight. But he's nursing a bump that he has on his head. And he's taking the time to review past actions and assess what's led him to this point in his life before moving forward. So he's reflecting. He's really contemplating and reflecting, but in a very mindful way, in a very conscious way, not like group ones where it was more of an unconscious awakening. Group two, those of you in group two, are having a very conscious awakening, which I think is pretty darn cool. You know, sometimes people react to stress in a much more aggressive way. Rather than fear or sadness, they just get pissed off. They get angry. And group twos, I think that's kind of where you are. I think that this card is really telling you to stop what you're doing, stop the madness that's happening in your mind and and stop beating yourself up by by staying up late and stressing out about everything, and just take a break and reflect. Take it as, try to look at the situation as a gift. You may feel like group two, like you're the people who are getting hit the hardest by this pandemic. Maybe you've experienced major financial stress, or maybe someone that you love got sick and literally went through this thing, or maybe you went through it, but it's still giving you a glimmer of hope, and it's telling you that you are in sync in a weird kind of way. You're in sync with the universe in the sense that you're coming to the end of a cycle, and this pandemic came around just in time to give you the message to slow down and think about it, to determine where you are, how you may be responding to things on a regular basis that may not be that healthy for you. Maybe you're an aggressive person on a regular basis and you carry a lot of stress. Maybe there are people in your life who you are now feeling the backlash of your past actions. So how are you being defensive, and how is that not serving you? So that's the lesson in the card. But a deep place of reflection right now and letting go of old wounds is advisable, and letting go of the fact that you can't completely control what's going on right now. The only thing you can control is yourself and your reaction to what's going on, but you can't control the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic. So to be in this state is not serving you. And quite frankly, to be in this state at any time in our lives doesn't serve us. But it's human, and we all go through it. I think that that you're a pretty sharp group two. You're pretty on the ball, and you're probably a very dynamic and intelligent group. But even if you're an overachiever, even if you're a control freak, even if you're a type A personality, all of those things, this may be challenging you guys more than anybody. But the same suggestions and bits of advice apply, which is to slow down and allow this growth to happen. Allow this reflection to serve you. Okay? Group 2. That is your reading. Moving on now to the last group, group 3, that had the onyx. We have the 3 of Pentacles in the reverse. we have the Queen of Pentacles upright, and we have the High Priestess in reverse. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this. Three of Pentacles. Well, group threes, you may be a little frustrated right now physically because you probably were in the middle of a project before this whole thing happened. You may have been in the middle of a business deal or building a business if you're an entrepreneur. You could have possibly been in talks with other partners to create something. And somehow everything got put on a big old pause when this happened. Maybe you're an artist who, was in the middle of getting your work out there publicly, either being published or promoted, and then suddenly the pandemic happened. So, you've been experiencing some delays, some very material delays, because the pentacles, of course, represent the material world. And that kind of unrealized physical block is frustrating. But keep in mind that there is such a thing as divine timing. And it could very well be that it was a blessing in disguise, that perhaps it was not meant to happen at this time, and that you are being guided and protected for it to all manifest and unfold when it's supposed to. It gives you an opportunity to remain focused if you can, and not allow the delays to derail you and to keep you on course. Because learning to give that space for a project to come to fruition is just as important as the inspiration that drives the project. Nothing can really happen overnight. In nature, when we plant a seed, it doesn't, the next day become a full-blown plant or a flower. It grows in stages. So if you can look at this time of a stall in your work or in your career as just another stage, just another step along the path to this fruition, then that's a healthier way for you to be able to cope with what's been happening. Now, moving on to the mindset, you're in a very good position. You've got the Queen of Pentacles. The Queen of Pentacles, she's a magical manifester. If anyone can make stuff happen and make money, it's the Queen of Pentacles. So I wouldn't be concerned. And I think that though you're frustrated, I think from a mental mindset perspective, I think you're in a pretty good place. I think you're holding down the fort, and you're maybe taking the opportunity to perfect whatever this creation is, or to iron out the details. I just love this Queen of Pentacles in Shadowland. Look at her. Look at this witch in her little cauldron, and her little cat who's helping out down there. I just think she's adorable. I just love her. So you're in a good place. You're in a good place. Just maintain it. Just remember that you can manifest at any time, in any circumstance. Nothing can hold you back from your good. And I think that's the message of that card for my group 3. Spiritually, where are you? Well, we've got the High Priestess. It doesn't get more spiritual than that. The High Priestess is really the link to the other world. I love what the book says about the High Priestess. I share secret and sacred knowledge passed down through the ages with those who will use this precious legacy wisely. So this high priestess is holding the secrets of the book of knowledge. She's holding the book of shadows, actually. And she is sharing this experience and knowledge with other generations. She's passing it down so they understand the unseen world. I think that for my group threes, this showing up in your spiritual position, and in a bit of a reverse, maybe you haven't come full blown into the acceptance of your psychic power, of your groundedness, but you have it. It's all there. You just need to trust it. You are really the embodiment of wisdom from a higher perspective. And if there's anybody who can go through this pandemic and see the bigger picture and see the advantage of it, or the messages of growth and hope and change within the crisis, it's you. You guys are the group that can do that. You are really someone who has learned to discern the difference between what is real and what isn't. You are in touch with the cycles of life. You're a natural counselor or sage to those around you. You have progressed beyond where most people have. And you're now, able to pass on this knowledge and inner wisdom to others. So group threes, you do as well need to find that that method of contemplation that works for you. You need to find your private time, your personal time, and highly recommend that you use the witching hours, which are when the sun is setting between, well, it depends on where you are in the world, but whenever the sun transitions, either rises or sets, when it's going through that transition, those are the witching hours. So if you're a morning person, you can find that private time right when the sun is coming up. And these are excellent times to meditate, by the way. Or if you're more of a night owl, you can do it around sundown. But you're probably also, like group one, going to get a lot of psychic messages, perhaps through your dreams. You might want to be aware of any kind of symbols that repeat or that are in your awareness, whether they're numbers, repetitive numbers, or themes, or maybe you dream of a totem animal or something like that. There could be messages there for you. It also may be a good idea to be a bit of a historian about what's going on right now and jot down your thoughts about this time in history, because it's certainly unique. This is something that many of us will remember for the rest of our lives, the time that we were in a quarantine because of this virus that was affecting the whole world. But any time that you can offer advice to a family member or a friend that may be really struggling, you will be a shining light of hope for them. So know that you have that power and that you can serve in that way. And that's a wonderful gift that this card brings. And the only reason why I think it's in the reverse position is because I don't think you're embracing your own power enough and really seeing that you have a strong effect on others with your wisdom. So those are group threes. These are pretty amazing readings. I just absolutely love, love, love this deck. And if you're on the fence about purchasing it, I suggest you hop off and you order it right away, because it is probably one of my favorite decks this year so far. And I think I'm not alone. I think there are a lot of other people who feel the same way about it. The cardstock's amazing. When it comes in the box, it comes in this really great box. Nice and sturdy. It comes with one of the best guidebooks that I've seen in a while. It's got color images of all the cards. It has keywords, shadow, message, reflections on how you can do some meditative work with the cards. It's got spreads in the back. It's got a quick reference section. It's just such a well put together package. But more than that is just the artwork, the interpretation. I mean, look at this. This the Seeker. This is the Fool in this deck. I mean, I can't, like, when I pulled this card out of the box the first time I opened my deck, I laughed out loud. I mean, look, the cat is pointing in the direction, and the Fool's head is on the ground here while he's holding his carpet bag. It's just, I mean, it's so clever. And so it's just clever in a, I don't know, in kind of a profound way. And it isn't until you start really working with this deck that you'll see what I mean, because I'm not sure that I'm explaining myself the way I'd like to. I'm struggling a little bit with explaining the power of the images, because from first glance, to some people it may just look, very childlike or cartoonish. I don't think it does, but I've heard a few people say that, which I don't agree with, but I could see their point. But then when you start really working with them, you see how much more is going on in these images. And I have gotten nothing but amazing reads with these cards. So I'm just giving you a little bit more of a flip through. I'm not going to go through all of them because I don't want to be on forever here, but for those of you who are thinking about getting the cards, I highly, highly recommend them. Oh, look at the King of Cups. He's got his home on his back. Just fabulous, fabulous imagery. And the Knight of Pentacles, traveling on a snail. I just can't say enough good things about this deck. So I hope that this gave you a little bit of an insight, like a walkthrough would of the Shadowland deck. But at the same time, I hope I was able to mix things up a little bit and do something a little bit different with the reading. I hope that it also helped to address some things that you may be going on right now for you during this whole crisis that we're all having to plow through. And it gives you a little bit of hope that, you're on your way to balance. You just have to make a few tweaks. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe or hit like. below. Let me know if you have any comments. I'm still trying to figure out what my channel is going to be about. I have only done a few videos so far, so I'm on that journey. And if there's something that you really like or that I do that I try out that resonates with you, please let me know. Okay? Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the week. Until next time.